Hi, my name is Nick, and welcome to Nick's Picks, the very first episode here on the About Time channel, where we'll be reviewing watches that I would have picked, and in this case, I have picked. For this episode, we'll be featuring the Grand Seiko Snowflake, the SBGA211. It's part of the Heritage Collection, where you see these more classy-looking dress watchy, yet everyday watches. I don't know if that's really a way to put it, but nonetheless, that's where I kind of see it fitting in. It's a watch that you could certainly wear every day with its lightweight titanium case and bracelet, and yet it is a watch that looks very classy. It looks like it can slip under the cuff with its very thin case height. Measuring in with a 12.5 millimeter thickness, it could definitely slip under the cuff and definitely pull that look off as well. So it's a very beautiful watch. It is a watch that has attained hype watch status, if you will, with social media influencers. And I think that's due in part to its dial. Its dial is made to look like the mountain snow over in Japan. And it definitely does. It's a beautiful dial. It has gained the nickname of Snowflake. And you can certainly see as you look at that dial that it looks like snow has been piled up on that dial. And yet that's just very carefully carved into it. You'll also see that the handset and the case sides and the chamfered edges, all of it has just been polished to this deep black mirror polish. And it's actually the Zaratsu polishing technique named after the machines that are used to do it, or at least the pronunciation of those machines as pronounced by the workers there. And so you can certainly see that that polishing work is next level. The finishing of the handset is absolutely incredible, finished both on the top and bottom of the handset. And if you can catch it just right in the light, you can actually see the reflection of the bottom of the hands. And what's interesting about that is sometimes it looks like, well, maybe this isn't finished well, or something's going on here, but really you're seeing the reflection of the dial on the, back from the crystal to the back of the handset. It's just really interesting interplay. Now, I didn't choose it necessarily because it was the hype watch that was being pushed. In fact, right now, if you go and look at different social media influencers out there, you'll see that they're pushing the, quote, White Birch model, which actually I would not pick personally, because as I'm looking at adding this piece to my collection, or at least when I was looking at adding that piece to my collection, because it's here now, the Snowflake is here, you'll find that I chose it because it was an example that had a beautiful dial. In this case, it had a very neutral dial that I could wear with lots of different things. It was a lightweight titanium case. I had a lot of experience wearing titanium watches with my, in this case, Tudor Pelagos, and I love that watch. And I've seen, certainly how it does change color over time. Yes, it does weigh not as much, but I actually like the lightweight nature of it. It's easier to wear. But also because of the spring drive movement. It's one of the signature aspects of this watch is that spring drive movement. And so for me, all of those things combined made this an excellent pick. And it's certainly one that I don't necessarily wear every day, even though I said it could definitely be an everyday watch. In my case, it's because I have so many watches in the collection and I like to rotate through and have some variety, but it is definitely one that you could. But I actually wear this mainly on date nights. Previously, I had been wearing my Vacheron Constantin Patrimony as my kind of date night watch. And as I was going through Instagram recently and looking at my feed, I realized, on date nights more recently, where I'm not wearing a suit and tie, and mainly because my suit doesn't fit anymore at the moment, thanks to COVID, long quarantine period, lots of food, not a lot of exercise. That's kind of how it goes. I have been reaching for this one a lot more often. But nonetheless, even though I'm not wearing it as often, I am keeping it wound and with its accuracy, because it is a spring drive movement. It has kind of a hybrid of quartz alongside an automatic movement. It ends up being fairly accurate. You'll find that it's basically going to achieve plus or minus 1 second a day. And overall, in the course of a month, it's mainly looking at plus or minus 15 seconds a month, which is definitely tolerable if you're, only wearing it every now and then. It does have a 3-day power reserve to keep it alive, so you're not having to wear it every single day. You can certainly let it go over the weekend. It will be just fine. But it's definitely a fantastic watch, fantastic pickup, highly recommend it, and it's definitely worth the money. Now, that being said, one of my hesitations at picking it up was the price. And you might say, well, you just said it's worth the money. What's wrong with you? You just said it's fine. True, and that's having owned it now for a while. I could definitely say it's worth that price. But initially, there is that challenge, especially if it's your first Grand Seiko piece, to put out that money for a piece that still says Seiko on the dial. Now, technically, it says Grand Seiko, or it says GS, really. And that's the Grand Seiko logo. But here's the deal. Grand Seiko and Seiko, yes, same roots, same heritage, still connected to Seiko Epson Corporation, but at the same time, it's not the company that builds your printer. I mean, it is in a way if you have an Epson printer, but this is completely next level. All right, so this is completely different. If you've seen a Seiko watch, you've seen some of the lower cost options, you compare the finishing, even within Grand Seiko, actually, if you compare the finishing between some of their more modern looking pieces alongside this heritage collection, it's completely different. All right, so different class altogether. But that was an initial hesitation, and it's kind of a silly one. And you might make fun of me in the comments. Feel free to do that. You can make fun of me in the comments over that. You're like, you dummy, it's not the company that makes your printer. Actually, it is the company. You can have an argument with yourselves about, how connected they really are. But it's definitely one that has a history of chasing after movement innovation over time, accuracy over time overall, and still today delivering amazing finishing. So as we take a look at this watch, keep that in mind. Now, if you've never seen a spring drive in person, if you've never seen one long-term, I will tell you that it is really a mesmerizing experience. The second hand is sweeping better than my camera can capture it. My camera is capturing 4K video at 30 frames per second, and that's actually not a very impressive stat. But this is moving more than 30 times per second. It's not a jagged, jittery, 28,800 beats per hour that you might be used to with, some modern automatics like a Rolex, or even a 21,600 beats per hour that you might have with a regular Seiko. This is a spring drive. It's in continuous motion. You have a movement that is being constantly regulated by this quartz circuit that is really providing the timekeeping alongside a spring-powered automatic movement. So you still have, on the back of the watch, you still have a rotor. So let me go ahead and grab this and flip it over here so we can kind of see that. So you still have a rotor that's basically winding a spring that is providing the actual power to the movement. The spring, as it's unwinding, is actually powering or generating electricity, a really small fraction of a little bit of electricity that's powering an integrated circuit that has a quartz crystal in there that's, deciding not deciding, but helping determine the time that's elapsed. And then it's regulating constantly by applying brakes to the escapement, which is in constant motion. And that constant motion at just the right rate is providing that very smooth sweep of the second hands that we've been able to enjoy as we look at the front of the dial. Now, also on that dial, you do see a power reserve indicator hovering above the 7 o'clock mark. And initially, I was kind of hesitant about this piece because of that. I do like my pieces to be very symmetrical, and I will always forgive a date window at the 3. I actually like the date window at the 3. It's totally fine. I like it better at the 6. But it does provide us a gauge of how much power is in the movement. In this case, this is a fairly fully wound piece because at the bottom there of that power reserve indicator, it indicates full power. And if it is kind of pointing straight up towards the 12 o'clock, that tells us it is completely dead. But as we can see, it is very full power and it's just humming right along. And that's a pretty good description for it. It's humming right along. There's no clicking, there's no ticking, there's no sound being generated. It's a very surreal experience. It's kind of like having an electric car versus a gas-powered car where you don't really have the same sounds coming out of it. And yet at the same time, this is very mechanical in nature. You can turn it around, see the other side, and see the hybrid nature of it. You have this mechanical beast next to this integrated circuit that's providing the braking on the escapement so it goes at the right rate. And so there's that argument to be made, is this a quartz watch or is it not? And I know that for some people, quartz is a dirty word. Quartz. We look at that word and we're like, no, I don't want to see it. And yet here it feels kind of right. You look at the back, you still see the automatic movement that you love. But somewhere lurking under there is a quartz crystal that you don't have to keep in mind the whole time. And honestly, when you're looking at the dial, you don't really keep it in mind. So this is providing a water resistance of 10 bar, has a weight of 100 grams with that titanium case and titanium bracelet. It has a screw-down crown, a see-through case back, and it has an anti-reflective coating on the inner surface of the sapphire crystal, which is dual curved. Overall, this 41mm beauty is really the complete package. It packs some history, it packs some horological importance, it packs a unique, interesting movement, it packs versatility for every day or for those dressy occasions. And let's be honest, that dial is just so gorgeous. And that smooth sweep of the second hand is mesmerizing. So that concludes our review of the Grand Seiko Snowflake here on Nick's Picks on the About Time channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you very much, and take care.